Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Scions of the Southland recap show. As always, my name is Akshay Ishwaran, and joining me from across the way in beautiful Midtown Atlanta this evening is Mr. Jake Grant. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. Hit the links, because I'm old and I like golf now, which is weird.
Ah, yes. It's on brand. The Masters are next week, so you got to get some practice in, right?
Oh, for sure, because I'm gonna get that green jacket when I can not take three approach shots and three putt a hole half the time. But sure,
Maybe we'll enter you in the youth tournament. You know, the U9 tournament.
I don't need to get beaten by a bunch of children. That would just be upsetting, but it would definitely happen. So,
Oh, it would absolutely happen. I haven't seen you golf, but I have a feeling.
oh, you would laugh too. Oh my goodness, it'd be bad. But
This is why I just
um,
accept that I can't golf and don't.
I should just stick to tennis in terms of uh, coronavirus pandemic sports.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. We can enter you in the U9 like French Open or something. That'll
Oh
work.
man, I mean, at this rate, you'd need to enter me in a U9 swim meet too, but that's a little more sad.
Yeah, let's not unpack that one. That's for later. It's a
Fair
separate
enough.
discussion. Uh, okay, so on the docket this week, we had some non-rev news come down the pipe. Swim had a dual meet. Was that at FSU or was that here? I
That
didn't.
that was at FSU, but they did
Hmm.
bring Danny Karnick along, so we still have some home meet worthy visuals.
Interesting. Interesting. We'll get there. We have some recruiting news from softball and basketball that we'll touch on. Obviously, a lot of ACC football action during Tech's bye week, and then we will wrap up talking about Pittsburgh next weekend. Where do you want to start? I'll let you pick.
Well, we always start with non-rev, and I got my sheet open, so let's talk swimming.
Oh my God, you are so lazy and predictable. Come on, come on, spice it up sometimes. Work with me here.
Okay, okay. Let's start talking about I don't know. What do you like? Let's say Cyprus. We can talk Cyprus first.
No, 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 no. That's after we lose another game by a terrible margin. Remember, we turn into a variety podcast after those.
I'm fixing to do it again. We have about three bad losses too many before we hit our trigger. But in any
W-
case,
Or
first.
let's start with swim. Let's just go, tried and true here.
All right, fair enough. Akshay. I'm gonna play a game. I don't think you've seen the results yet, have you?
No, I haven't seen any of
Okay,
them.
okay. So we've swum against FSU in a duel or a try, like the head-to-head type stuff. 16 times in the last 18 years. Okay?
It's much higher
Okay.
than I thought it
Okay.
was, but continue.
Well, it's shocking considering we only have like four dual meets a year, and usually they're against D3 and NAIA teams, but schedule
Scheduling.
scheduling. Anyways, so Florida State is essentially always on our schedule. I want you to guess how many times since the women's team was inaugurated 18 years ago they have beat Florida State in head-to-head competition.
I feel like the answer is going to be zero, but I'm going to guess at least twice.
Well, you're right and you're wrong because before this weekend it was once. It was once
Aha!
in 2014. And if I told you this headline, right, that the Georgia Tech swim team went down to Tallahassee and went 1-1, so the men and the women split, who would you think won?
Probably the men.
Well, then, do I have a shocking development for you? Because I thought the same darn thing. Sorry, gotta keep this a family friendly podcast. But to my shock, when I actually opened the headline, having already made my assumptions about what I was going to say about this meet based on reading the headline, The women lost again, but the men are still good, so that's good. Blah, 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 blah. To my shock, the women kind of throttled Florida State.
That's different. Certainly very different. And I mean, this is on you for deciding on your narrative before actually reading the rest of the article.
Yes, this is true. This is true. I'm going to give you another stat. Okay,
Okay.
there was 32 events, 16 men, 16 women. They did two of which were diving, two of which were relays. They didn't do a
Okay.
2-3 relay. That was a little weird. But the rest is kind of standard events, which means of 16 events, I want you to guess how many the women took first place in.
At least two. I'm going to go with that again.
At least two. Okay, well, it was 13 of 16.
They took first in 13 of 16.
13 of 16 events. They lost the exact, or two of the three that you'd expect, the 50 free and the 100 free. For whatever reason, Georgia Tech just does not have deep sprints. And Florida State, they kind of tend to do that. And they lost the 1 meter dive, but they made up for lost ground in the 1 meter dive because two true freshmen, took second and third.
Lots of podiums here. I can dig it.
Yeah, lots of podiums. In fact, I have my results sheet in front of me, and I kind of tinkered, dropped the results in.
Oh boy, he went full data analyst again.
If COUNTIF and SUMIF are data analytics, then I am your king. Anyways, 13 wins for the women. 14 of the 23 podium spots for the women were taken by freshmen.
Interesting. That's youth. That's depth in youth.
Sorry, and this double, triple, quadruple counts the relays, so it's actually higher than 23. But anyways, it's more like 32-ish spots, but almost half were true freshmen. 9 were sophomores, 10 were juniors, 3 were seniors. Of the 9 sophomore spots, a transfer from Miami took first in the 500 and the 1,000 free, so picking right up where Ilgenfritz, I believe that was her name, left off because she graduated. So, yeah, youth movement for the girls, and it seems to be paying off.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you read off the results like that with the high concentration of sophomore and freshman podiums, like that's not just a youth movement. That's a depth in depth and talent in that part of the lineup too.
Which is weird because I didn't think that at first. So the men wound up coming up short by 4 points. I talked to my
respectable, a quality loss, as they would say in SEC country.
Yeah, but they lost by 4 points, and in his quote, 1 or 2 personnel moves, and it would have been flipped. We should have won the meet. Combined, the Jackets took the combined men and women score by a healthy margin. But on the depth thing, I have always seen this women's team since I've started covering them and since I got to Georgia Tech as being, Iris Wang or Wong. I'm not really sure which one it is, so I'm sorry if I got it wrong. And Emily Ilgenfritz, and then the diver Cameron Hidalgo as being like those top 3, and then there's just nothing, right? Like I feel like that's kind of been the theme. So I went to look for the relay results, and yeah, the 200 medleys weren't great, but the women's did win. Men got third. The men and women went 1-2 in both of the 400 free relays.
That's okay.
Yeah. So when a narrative kind of starts to die, I think this is that time.
Is this death of a narrative instead of death of a salesman?
I guess.
I don't know. I haven't watched that play. I'm trying. I'm really digging for a joke here.
I need to posit a scenario for you.
Okay.
Is this now a Courtney Sheely Hart Stan podcast?
Improve the scheduling and we'll talk. I'm joking, but I'm also kind of serious. I understand that scheduling is restricted this year. Like, take a mulligan this year, that's fine. Next year, once you have hopefully have the full slate open again, I think something we've been talking about, I think at least between us and maybe in the writers' room as well, is that this is one of the only programs in the nation that swims in a literal Olympic pool in every sense of the word. And then they've had also program improvements in that pool as well. That is a huge, huge recruiting tool. And what helps your program build off of that, because it's not just a recruiting tool, it's a huge recruiting foundation. What helps your program build off of that is scheduling quality opponents. I'm not a swimmer, or I used to be, and I'm not anymore. And I'm certainly not a college swimmer, so I can't, peer into the mind there. But if they're anything like normal college athletes, they want to, play the best to be the best, right? So they have to swim against quality competition. Maybe not the Texas and the Stanfords of the world need to, like, those guys don't need to come over to Macaulay, but scheduling Athens again, having them on the schedule every year, having the other good programs in dual meets in the ACC, having them come in every year. That's how you start. You challenge your own roster, and you eventually, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think it says a lot when you look at like some of the coronavirus swimming coverage. Swam, for those who know them, it's basically BuzzFeed but for swimming. Anyways, they're obsessed with the Texas program. Their Instagram feed has been constantly Texas, blah 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 blah, and that's not too surprising outside of your Cal, your Stanford.
Okay, but we're talking about Texas.
The point is, like, if you get, you're not maybe going to get Texas on the schedule, but get one of those programs that people talk about, and you have people swimming against a school that they see as being a power. You have a chance to beat them, and I'm biased here, but I think swimmers are naturally smart people. You see a fair amount more engineers on this team than typically, I'd say, for Tech. It's a little bit, I think they graduated a couple more than normal last year, but usually they skew pretty, Georgia Tech engineering inclined. Like you can recruit to that, the same way you can recruit a lot of cross country and track types to a good engineering school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, figure out the scheduling, prove the scheduling, and we'll talk. We'll talk about a partnership or sponsorship here.
Yeah. Speaking of talking, I've never been so sure of this, but I think we could maybe get a guest from the program on the pod if we feel like it, and if maybe some of the audience is so inclined. But we could work on that too.
We'll talk. We'll workshop it. We'll talk about it in committee.
Yeah, we gotta fill the COVID times on this light fall schedule somehow. But we're also out at bye weeks, so oops.
There more are coming soon enough. If you get my parlance, we'll figure it out.
Maybe we'll have basketball to fill the void. Once football's over.
That is true. We will get there. Next on the list here, we were talking about swimming recruiting. Let's pivot over to softball recruiting. Like I mentioned earlier, softball did add a couple of commits for the next couple of years coming up. We have pitcher and first base woman, Jaden Gailey out of Franklin County, Georgia. That's class of 2022. And then outfielder Ella Edgmond, and she's in the class of 2021. I am not the resident softball expert, as you all know, so I will let Jake and his softball inclined knowledge here take the wheel.
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I did spend this weekend up in Dalton at a travel softball tournament.
Yes, Dalton, the carpet capital of America.
And maybe the COVID capital, too, based on behavior of youth sports parents and mask wearing. But this is not a judgment podcast. This is a sports podcast in which we judge the sports, not the people. Anyway,
very good save. Good save.
Exactly. The only team local that I saw, I guess Tennessee Mojo was on the other field behind us, but I did see East Cobb play, but I don't think any of them were close to recruitment status at Georgia Tech. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. But I wish I would have noticed, because I'm pretty sure Gailey's team was there. I just don't know.
Gailey is on Tennessee Mojo. Yes, that is what I have gleaned from her Twitter account.
Yeah. I just don't know if she was on the other field or at the other park. Point is, I didn't see her, but I wish I had because her accolades are pretty deep. And we definitely found more on her than we did on Edgman because we're poor and don't have recruiting rankings. So hopefully they're good.
Hopefully, if you want us to pay for recruiting rankings, keep giving us that ad revenue, or just send us a Venmo request, or not a request, Venmo payment.
It's for Jake and Akshay to be the leading coverage of not only swimming and tennis, but the official podcast of softball.
Unofficial podcast of Georgia Tech softball, which is a position that I know you would enjoy very much.
I wouldn't say I'm their biggest fan, but I am a big fan of them. I hope they continue to do well. And both of these players seem like good fits for the Jackets. So I don't know. They're staying kind of in the neighborhood and picking up some at least decent credentialed players. So hopefully that works out.
Yeah, and just to round out the slate here, speaking of the accolades that Gailey has collected in her high school career, she was the 2018 and 2019 Georgia AAA Player of the Year, AAA being the classification at GHSA, the Georgia High School Sports Association. And then she was also the 2020 Region 8 AAA Pitcher of the Year. So, highly rated.
Yeah. I was going to say one more thing, and I cannot remember what it was. So, oh well.
You're really ruining my transitionary moments here.
I'm a horrible person, so there you go.
Well, speaking of other horrible people, specifically degenerate gamblers that stayed up very late to watch Clemson and Notre Dame, we should talk about the other ACC matchups in football that happened this week.
Sure, we can do that.
See, long and winding transition. This is what I was saying. You ruined my moment, and I had something, and then you just butted in, and now I had to come up with a long explanation.
It seems like we need mediating presences back on this podcast, but who knows
Probably.
where our former co-hosts are?
Who knows? Maybe they've just been pass interference into a different dimension.
Hey, that would explain a lot. But
or stuck in replay review.
Ooh, I feel
topical.
Like review, it could never end,
Or they could review it twice.
True.
Okay.
I will be the first to admit that the only game I watched any of at all this week was the Notre Dame Clemson in terms of ACC. So I'm glad that's last on our list because we have to also recap the rest of these too.
Yeah, I watched a couple of these, so let's just walk through the slate starting on Friday because we did have a Friday game this week. The 7:30 on ESPN was number 11 Miami 44, NC State 41. This one went late. Like the NC State hung in there. This was a very winnable game for them, and I think Bailey Hockman, their backup quarterback, starting in place of Devin O'Leary, played pretty well. And they just, NC State crap, they just kind of couldn't get it done.
Yeah, that jives with basically what I heard. It was close final score. Seemed like a lot of points got put up. Probably typical Friday night ACC content.
Yes. Friday night ACC games are basically Big 12 games. This is known.
I was going to say high school, but that sounds like that would make sense too.
More or less. All right. On Saturday, the nooner on ESPN2 was North Carolina 56, Duke 24. Honestly, not much on this one. This is kind of what I expected.
Yeah, Duke is terrible. So when our questionably terrible team plays them in a couple weeks, that will be definitely interesting.
Fireworks of a particular persuasion is my prediction for that one.
Dang it, I just remembered what I was going to say earlier. I was going to make a joke about hopefully Gailey doesn't go 7-6. God.
Ooh.
Anyway,
man.
A total missed opportunity. But anyways, we're on ACC roundup.
Yeah, we're on the ACC roundup now. You've lost your moment. The other nooner, this one was on the ACC network. Number 25, Liberty 38, Virginia Tech 35. I think it's important to note here, and I watched a good chunk of this. Virginia Tech did the miracle on Tech with thing. With the field goal that Liberty attempted at the end of the game, but got sniped by Justin Fuente calling a timeout right before the kick. And then
So
Liberty threw one.
Their own miracle?
Yes.
Wow.
It was kind of funny, I'm not going to lie, but I also have a very dark sense of humor. So, take that for what you will. How this ended up ending is that after that timeout, Liberty comes out, throws one out route for like 10 or 15 yards, gets out of bounds with 5 seconds left, and then kicks a game-winning field goal that actually goes through the uprights this time.
Who kicked the game-winning field goal?
It was not Brenton King. I know that is your next question.
Rats.
He is probably sitting his 1 year for his transfer.
A shame. I miss that guy, and I think I can say that with full honesty and earnestness now. But
I have thoughts about that statement. We'll get there. We might get there. We'll see. The 2 p.m. on your local RSN, which is also not viewable anymore on Hulu or YouTube TV. Boston College 16, Syracuse 13. I didn't watch this one. I got nothing, honestly.
I got nothing too, but we have a final score, and we gave it to you, so maybe that covers it.
Bare minimum. We're all about the bare minimum. The 4 p.m. on ACC Network, Pittsburgh 41, Florida State 17. Didn't watch this one either, but we do play Pitt next week, and we'll get to that one.
Yeah, good old Pitt.
Good old Pitt, and also good old FSU for making that season opening loss just look worse and worse.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we beat Pitt, then I guess it's just, I was going to say a circle of suck, but that's just FSU sucks twice, which I'm okay with. So there we go.
That's fine. The big game, which was actually a really, really fun game to watch, the 7:30 on NBC. Number 1, Clemson 40. Number 4, Notre Dame 47. This one went to double OT.
Yeah, it was exciting. I thought it was over with 2 minutes left when Notre Dame didn't convert on fourth. But yeah.
Now I'm tempted to go look at the win probability graph. Hold on. Vamp for a little bit.
So I'll tell a story while Mr. Akshay is gone. Anyways, the first college football game, I remember being like able to appreciate where I was because you go in elementary school and middle school, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I didn't come from a big college football family, but I didn't really appreciate it. But I do remember going to Notre Dame Stadium for USC Notre Dame in 2014. And I may not like Notre Dame. I didn't like USC either, but it was just kind of like good college football, But it is definitely a great place to watch a game, and I was shocked kind of to see that they hadn't hosted a team quite like, well, definitely not a number 1 team like Clemson in a very long time. But even without that, it's a great place to watch a game. So definitely, the fans definitely got treated last night. Experience, gameplay, all that stuff.
They also might have gotten some COVID, but we'll leave that one to the doctors.
Yeah, we are not the experts on that.
Okay, so I pulled it up. So immediately after Notre Dame failed on that 4th down, with 2 minutes left, I think it was with about 2 minutes left here, Clemson had a 97.3% win probability by ESPN's metrics, and they lost.
There's something broken with win percentage metrics. Then you'd have to, right?
So we'll get back on track, but just very short discussion on this. The ESPN one is definitely a little broken, but it's also heavily play-by-play dependent because they are measuring this as cumulative well, not cumulative, but they're measuring this play on a play-by-play basis and tracking it. And so what happens is that's where you sort of get this discrepancy between the post-game win expectancy and these like isolated minute by minute win probability numbers. Like we can talk about post-game win expectancy here, and if you go back and look at it, Bill C posted this morning that Notre Dame actually was, based on the stats, they would have lost this game. I don't remember exactly what the percentage was, but they should have lost this game. But they won.
That's exactly what I was thinking when they kept settling for field goals early in the game, but
yeah,
they managed to pull it out.
Red zone execution was not great by Notre Dame in this game, and I think the win probability graph kind of reflects that because Notre Dame does not get past 75% on the chart here. Until obviously the overtime in the end of the game. But Clemson hits 97% and then has a precipitous fall. So, yikes.
Yeah. I don't know. Little old Dabo's going to have to go back and take little old Clemson to be little old disrespected, I guess. I don't know.
To be fair, right now,
is it, to finish my point, is it weird to say that Notre Dame was like the underdog in this scenario when Notre Dame is 11 national titles, consistently overrated, media bias, Subway alumni, NBC contract, doesn't even need a conference?
No, Notre Dame was definitely the underdog in this scenario. Are you kidding? The last time these two teams played, Notre Dame had 3 points.
It felt like a Titan went down instead of, if you played this game to somebody in 2005, they would have been like, Notre Dame's back. Gosh darn it. Like, this is boring.
Right, but you're also accounting for 15 years of history where Notre Dame was not that great for a while.
This is true. And I don't know.
Charlie Weiss, dude. Charlie Weiss.
Oh, I know. I had to listen to Chicago Talk Radio for all of that. But no, it was kind of a delicious day. We got to see UGA and Clemson lose on the same day.
Oh, yes. We didn't even talk about that one. We'll very, very quickly, because we do have to finish the roundup. Florida, thank you. Thank you so much.
The announcer is saying that the standard in Athens is to compete for a national championship and nothing else when they haven't won one in 40 years, and this year won't even be playing for an SEC championship. Mwah, perfect. It was beautiful.
Okay, I think at a certain level, famous last words, right? Because Florida still has the rest of its schedule to play. We're making some drastic assumptions about the way that this year is going to go, or the rest of those games are going to go. But in a vacuum, the way that Florida won is the modern way of college football. It is a way that teams work these days. It is the proper, effective way to win. The way that Georgia plays is circa 2010. And it is very clear that it is not working out anymore. And it is also very clear to me personally that it's not because of the offensive coordinators. And I will leave you, the viewer/listener, to dissect that statement.
Just wait until Missouri beats Georgia next time out. That's all I'm saying.
I need to see that meltdown on the internet. That would bring me so much joy.
I mean, Kentucky held them to 14 points, but this is not an SEC podcast, so I guess I should probably stop.
This is more of a Schadenfreude podcast right now.
Hey, if there's one thing you and I are good at, it's that.
This is very true. Let's finish up the 8 p.m. game that was probably supposed to be on the ACC network. Louisville, Virginia was postponed till next week because of COVID and a COVID outbreak at Louisville. So we'll be on the lookout for that in the preview at the end of the show. That is about it for this weekend. But let's talk about some other stuff that happened during the week, specifically in the world of basketball recruiting. Tech picked up a third top 150 commit, which is weird to say and think about, especially after the usual success that Tech has had recruiting. So that is shooting forward Jalen Moore, who committed to Tech on November 5th. Like I said, he's top 150 overall and a consensus 3-star recruit. I am not a basketball person. I expect that you are, and also that you will know more about him.
In terms of how they play the game and recruiting and stuff, I'm gonna be totally honest. I don't follow really recruiting in almost any sport. I know that makes me a bad podcast host and a bad non-rev
Yes.
writer, but I don't know. I think a lot of it is phooey and based on my family's experiences and my experiences and seeing how people pan out and don't pan out. I think a lot of it's kind of a crapshoot. But that being
Say
said, I
something
think
nice about the guy. Come on.
I was about to get to my segue. I think basketball has some of the best, most well vetted uh, recruiting of any sport, just because of how tight the teams are, of how tight the circuit is. I trust these results more than I would trust seeing this for football or for baseball or for swimming. You know, like it is possible to see all top 150 players in 2 weekends of tournaments. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I don't doubt that Mr. Moore, Mr. Coleman, and Mr. Kelly are the real deal. I think it's fantastic that Passner and Passner's reactions are just as critical for me here too,
Mm-hmm.
because it sounds like he's finally getting, and no offense to some of the guys on the team right now, it sounds like he's finally getting those guys that are at the top of his list, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if he's getting in players that he can work with and that he thinks will work in his and Revenant's system, um, then I think we're cooking. I mean, Jordan Usher this week promised or assured us an NCAA tournament bid. It just is a matter of which seed. Um,
It's
so
a
these
very
boys
bold statement. It is a very bold
hopefully,
statement.
hopefully with tournament experience. And if you have a top 50 player coming in and two top 150 players coming in, that is a very good thing to build on the base of losing. Sure, maybe Alvarado and Usher. I don't know how the eligibility will work out exactly because, you know, they might be able to stay, they might not, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what the last winter eligibility looks like, but we'll have another year at DeVoe. We'll have another year at Sturdivant. Like, I hope that's how you say his name. Kyle Sturdivant.
And
Sturdivant.
then you also have Rodney Howard, who transferred in from Georgia. So
And Tristan
it's
Maxwell too. So
exactly. So honestly, like, and you mentioned shooting guard Debo Coleman, who committed in October, and then guard Miles Kelly that committed earlier in September as well to round out the 2021 class. I think that's the year. I'm never sure about these things. Anyway, the point I'm coming around to here is you're right. This is a good recruiting class. Like, this is not what we're used to.
well, I feel like we're used to just seeing a name and going like, who?
Yeah. And
You know,
again, like, no disrespect to the guys that are on the roster, but this is, I think, like you said, Pasner was finally hitting his stride on the recruiting trail, whether that's because of COVID keeping visits and contact more local, or what have you. He's still able to. He's getting his guys, and this is a critical year, and I think we talked about it in the spring when we were still playing basketball. Like, these 2 years are super critical. Like, these are contract defining years. And I don't feel like that's an exaggeration. I think Pastner has to make the tournament this year. And if his players are coming out and saying, we feel good and we are going to guarantee a tournament bid, and they're going to call their shot like this, and he's backing it up with recruiting like this, I think that bodes very well for the next couple of years.
yeah. And we do pass him relatively affordably if he does start doing stuff well. So that's always positive. I was going to say something else here. Oh yeah, and uh, other than Shimbari Phillips from Tennessee, Passner's been pretty decent at picking up transfers. I mean, Bubba Parham, who came from VMI, I want to say.
Yeah.
Um,
VMI.
um, Brandon Alston from Lehigh was pretty solid. I think Jordan Usher will probably be the best of them, but James Banks did fantastic, and Sturdivant. We haven't seen him play yet at Tech,
and Rodney Howard, like we were talking about,
and we'll see how Rodney Howard and Sturdivant plays. But like the last two we got, Usher and Banks turned out pretty darn well. In fact, to the point that I'd say Banks was probably one of our three most defining players of the last 2 years, other than DeVoe and Alvarado. So I don't know, and there's a lot of unknowns about this team, I think, but there's also a lot of known quantities, right? We know kind of hopefully what we can expect from Moses and Jose Alvarado and Mike DeVoe and Bubba Parham, and we'll kind of see how everybody else fits in with that, Yeah. I'm into basketball. I love college basketball. I think it's the purest expression of great basketball, and I'm very excited to see what this team does this year.
This is also coming from a Bulls fan, this makes it a very strange statement. Anyway, jokes aside, we're talking about a program that finished 5th in the ACC, a surprise 5th. I don't think any of us really saw that coming.
Absolutely nobody did.
No, absolutely nobody did. It's not just 5th; they finished with a plus 500 record in conference play for the first time in a long time.
25 years, right?
It was. I don't know. I don't think it was 25. It might have been since like 03 or 04 or something. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But you're talking about other coaches like the other coaches of Georgia Tech have not been able to go over 500 in conference play, despite NBA players on their roster. I can't remember what a year exactly that I'm thinking of, but
I know exactly what you're thinking of. It's the 2010 team with Favors, Shumpert, I think maybe Thaddeus Young, and maybe it's not that, but I know it was Shumpert and Favors were on that team. This is also way before my time, so props to me for even remembering that. But
but the point is, like, even that team went 7-9 in ACC play.
Then I don't think it made the tournament either.
Yeah, so again, you're building on what looks to be a good foundation. Obviously, this comes with a caveat. Last season of COVID didn't really apply because that canceled the conference tournament that Georgia Tech wasn't going to be part of anyway. But you're building, and the caveat there is you had a weaker ACC overall because UVA was, Duke was also, UNC was. I'm using a lot of onomatopoeia here because that's kind of how the best way to describe these teams and how they performed last year. Honestly,
top 5 when they came to McCamish, but yes, UNC was bad and Virginia was coming off the title high.
And I mean, but they picked up
before we go into the praise. Mm-hmm. All Pastner needs to do is schedule a little bit better. No more of this last stuff.
Again, the scheduling. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I think getting the Arkansas game was a good pull. I think that was a really, really good call. There was also Kentucky last year.
They're back on the schedule too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was. I mean, I feel like I remember that Kentucky game being a near miss too.
Yep, it was.
Yeah, Tech had a lot of near misses last year, and I think you flip a couple of those 50% win probabilities, and you're. I mean, obviously they weren't near 50%, but bear with me. They're coin flip games. You flip a couple of those, you regress the overall percentage to the mean, and you're cooking with gas, especially in a year like this. Obviously, in a year like this, in 2021, you also have a lot of players, a lot of seniors coming back because of the extra year of eligibility added. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's for basketball too. I don't exactly remember. It might just be for baseball, but it's going to be interesting to see how these rosters play out. And I think you also get an extra year of some of the guys that are on the roster right now because winter sport athletes were also granted a year of extra eligibility starting like a couple weeks ago. So It'll be interesting. I think interesting is definitely the way to put it. Obviously, from the Rumble Seat, we'll be putting out content throughout the road to tip off. I actually don't know when the first game is offhand, which makes me a bad podcaster. But it's sometime this month. That's what I got for you.
There's plenty of bad podcasters. I think it's the 25th of November. I don't know if Athens is on the schedule this year for the first time in many years. I don't know what the deal with that was.
We really don't have any scheduling news for basketball. I think, and this is a criticism that I've seen a lot on college basketball Twitter to a certain extent, is that these programs and these conferences have had a long time to figure out how they're going to handle COVID as from a scheduling perspective, and they have not released any sort of plan other than we're moving the Maui Invitational to Raleigh Durham or whatever.
Oh no, Akshay, don't forget about this. It's far too dangerous for the women's Big Ten ACC Challenge to happen, but they can send Georgia Tech to Lincoln for the men's.
Yeah, I think that's actually the only confirmed scheduling news that we have. I'm not kidding about that.
One last point on basketball that I need to get in. Every year, every day, every month, whatever, Georgia Tech's decision to take the postseason ban last year looks smarter and smarter.
So much smarter.
Oh my goodness. What was Pastner? Pastner must have known. He's a genius.
Pastner actually released the virus.
I don't know.
Pastner actually released the virus. Galaxy brain move.
Playing 5D chess, man. I can't even.
70 checkers.
21, good defense.
All right, we need to move on. We've already been at this for a while. Let's talk about Pitt coming up on the football schedule on Saturday. That will be at 7 p.m. on your local RSN. Again, with the caveat that Hulu TV and YouTube TV no longer hold the rights to showing those RSNs. Thank you, Sinclair. So good luck in finding a way to watch those. Vegas has Pitt by 8 points with an over-under of 53.5. SP Plus has Pitt by 4.7 points, putting their pregame win probability at around 61%. We don't have a lot of time, but I do want to talk about Pitt in a little bit at depth. So where do you want to start?
I just want to give you my prediction right off the top. And that's because Kenny Pickett had a good Kenny Pickett week last week, which means he'll have a bad Kenny Pickett week this week, which means we will win, because that is how football works.
Yes. You've boiled football down to its purest essence. Congrats. Good or bad cop Kenny Pickett.
Yep.
Okay. That's what okay. Let me hit everyone with some more context. So Pittsburgh, their secondary has had some injuries and some opt-outs. The offense, as per usual, has not been there much at all. Pickett was out for a couple of weeks due to an injury. He came back last week versus FSU. They did win that game, like Jake said, by a healthy margin. They won 41-17. Pitt, in terms of SP Plus, which is the metric du jour that we're going to use to compare the two teams, they're 39th overall, and our point about the offense sort of applies here. They're the 93rd ranked offense. Contrast that with their defensive ranking, which is 16th, and then the 13th ranked special teams. And then on the flip side, we have Georgia Tech, 72nd overall, 71st ranked offense, 65th ranked defense, and then 119th special teams. Tech is a more balanced, average to mediocre team, whereas Pitt, as per usual, is one of the greatest half teams in the nation. It's always like this, and it's kind of exhausting at this point.
Yeah, I keep waiting for the year that offense is going to break through and Pitt's going to go to the top of the conference, but it just never really does.
I don't get it. It's not the same deal as at Georgia, because Pitt does not have the same caliber of players as Georgia, but it's a similar case, right? You got to think that.
Bruh, if a Pitt person came to me with the same expectations as a Georgia person, I wouldn't. But I get what you're trying to say.
No, no,
Like,
no. I'm not talking about the expectations, right? I'm talking about the defensive-minded coach sort of sticking his hands into the offense, and it turns into a whole thing. If you get where I'm going with this.
so basically, we need a pat eye for the Narduzzi guy, and then we'll all be squared away. But no, I get what you're trying to say, and I think that's true. But also, I don't really see much more of a window of improvement for them outside of maybe a different OC coach. But Narduzzi made it to the ACC title game, right? Like, I don't think there's
Okay.
more than
This comes with the caveat.
there's not much you can expect from the man.
Yeah, I don't think Narduzzi's on the hot seat by any means, and obviously we're not in a position to be talking about other people's hot seats, because that has already backfired on us once this year at Syracuse. But you can coach as many great half teams as you want, but at a certain point, the offense has got to come with you, right? Just to read off some basic stats here before we sort of dive in deeper. Pittsburgh offense, 6.5 yards per play, 11.7 yards per completion. I think that's actually yards per dropback. And then yards per rush, 3.3. Those are all 73rd in the nation or worse. The yards per rush number is actually 116th in the nation, and I believe that's out of 127 playing teams. Those are not good. They're not good at all.
You're right. You're right.
Okay. Well, again, so some more contextual color. Let's talk advanced stats for a second. Expected points added per play for the Pittsburgh offense, negative 0.125. That is 104th in the nation. Success rate of 34.5%, 103rd in the nation. EPA per rush, negative 0.283. That's 113th in the nation. The offense is just not there. It continues to, again, it's a great half team. Their offense is what their defense makes other offenses look like. And
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. If you like, we have it in our document here, and you can see that the defense stats for Pitt are basically the same thing that the offense stats are, but they are higher ranked because they are allowing that.
Yep. And none of this should really surprise anybody, should it? In my opinion, I think I would say that. I'm not so sure. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. But to paraphrase Dennis Green's famous Monday Night Football rant, because I was thinking about that today for some reason, they are who we think they are. Like, this isn't a surprise from any past Pitt team. And if you
This hasn't been a change from Pitt for the last 5 years.
Exactly. If you can get something to work on offense, then
this Pitt team is like a consistent. Like, this Pitt team is a consistent ACC Coastal or ACC Championship appearance if they have an offense, if they have a top 60 offense.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I legitimately think that, because their defenses are consistently good, consistently top 20, consistently top 15. This is just ridiculous.
I think it's frankly kind of a breath of fresh air after the teams we've seen the last 3 games. At least it's something different, honestly.
This is very true, considering Notre Dame and Clemson's proclivity for offense.
Yep.
And BC's desire to run the football all over us, despite not running the football well at all the entire season. I'm not going to make a pick on this game purely because the ACC Coastal is the ACC Coastal, even though we're not doing divisions anymore. I want to say I expect a better showing than previous weeks from Georgia Tech, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, especially on the defensive side of the ball, given how bad this Pitt offense is. But I will leave it at that.
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay. So let's round it out with talking about next week's games in the ACC. All right.
Right.
Oh my God, you're squeaking all over the place with that bet of yours. Really
That's my
harshing my
trick.
transition mojo. All right, so the nooner on ACC Network, that is Wake Forest at North Carolina.
Give me the Tar Heels.
Actually, give me Wake Forest. I think
Okay.
UNC has sort of regressed to the mean, especially with those losses to FSU, and then crap. I think they lost one more game after that I can't remember. What was that one? That was to
Virginia.
Virginia.
Virginia, maybe.
It was Virginia. Yeah, it was Virginia. I think they've regressed to the mean a little bit. I still think they're a good team, but obviously something has changed in the last couple of weeks. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm feeling frisky. Give me Wake Forest.
Fair enough.
Okay. The other nooner in this will be on ESPN2. Number 9, Miami at Virginia Tech. I think this is an easy call. Give me the Canes.
Yeah, same. Easy money.
Yeah, that one's easy, especially after watching Virginia Tech have some trouble with Liberty. That was an interesting game to watch as an ACC conference fan, I guess, in that case. Anyway, moving on, the 3:30 on ACC Network. This is a different time slot for them. Louisville at Virginia, and this is the rescheduled game from last week. I think these two teams are about even. I don't have the spread in front of me, but I would say just like eye test wise, these are two even teams.
Yeah. I'd agree. I'd probably pick UVA. I have a gut feeling. I don't know what Louisville's going to be looking like coming out of COVID protocol. I also just don't want to pick Louisville because I don't like their brand of football all that much. So give me UVA.
Yeah, give me UVA. I think Louisville is definitely going to still be hurting and missing a lot of players on the roster. Obviously, VT started the season out that way and was able to pick up a couple wins, but it just depends on who's out for Louisville on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Moving on, the 3:30 on ABC, newly minted number 2 Notre Dame heads to Boston College.
I think we're both going to pick the Fighting Irish on this one.
Yep.
But we all picked Clemson last week, so go figure.
That one was more of a pick 'em though. I think this one has a bit of a more. This has an obvious answer, but and this is a large but. And Notre Dame has done the letdown look ahead thing, or I guess this is just a letdown spot, the hangover spot before to Boston College. So it will be interesting. I will say that. All right, with you getting more tired, let's wrap this up. The 7:30 on ACC Network is Florida State at NC State.
I don't know if Florida State's going to win another game this year.
I'm mildly curious, so let me look at the schedule while you give a pick.
I think it's going to be NC State. They keep coming close. They were ranked for a bit. I just think they're the better team. I think it's a simple question as that.
Okay, so I'm going to agree with you on the NC State pick, but let's talk about for 1 second. Let's talk about Florida State's schedule the rest of the way. At NC State this weekend, hosting Clemson the next weekend, hosting UVA the weekend after that, and then ending the season at Duke. I think they pick up the Duke game, but even that is a toss-up, right?
Yeah,
They're going to go at best 1-3 down the stretch here.
yeah. I would agree. There's just not a lot left for them to pick up.
Mike
Of course, if
Norvell.
anybody able to be invited to a bowl, they'll probably still get one because they have a gigantic fan base who will watch anything. But
TV money.
that's
All
a
about
problem.
all about the TV money, my dude.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that about wraps it up for the ACC picks.
Wait. What was your pick?
Oh, no, I said NC State.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I said NC State, but Florida State is going 1-3 the rest of the way at most.
Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page then.
Yeah. All right, that about does it for me on today's episode. How about you?
That does it for me too. I got nothing else.
Okay, listeners, thank you all for listening, and Mr. Grant, thank you for speaking to me today. We will see you all next weekend. Have a good one.